Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our session today. Danny will be talking to us about our AD campus solutions, and I'm going to hand over to him. Any questions that you have, pop them into the Q&A, and we'll answer them as the session goes along, and we'll have a Q&A session at the end as well. Thank you, Danny.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mark. Good morning, everyone, and thanks so much for joining. Just from my side, I've just been fighting the flu, so if I need to stop for a sip of water or blow my nose or anything, apologies. You haven't dropped the call. I'll be back with you shortly. Cool. H3C AD Campus Solution. So for anyone unfamiliar with H3C and AD Campus, AD Campus is H3C's software-defined networking campus solution. The industry calls it software-defined networking. H3C calls it application-driven networking or an application-driven campus. And really the story we want to give over today in today's training is very much from a partner's point of view, almost how a partner would approach a customer in terms of either selling them an AD Campus solution themselves or a managed service based off AD Campus. There's lots of moving parts to AD Campus, and it looks very complicated. And there is a lot of moving parts, and there is complication in it. But the high-level story, the conversation, the quick wins, the benefits of AD Campus and software-defined networking in general can be looked at in a much more simplistic approach. And the idea today with the training is to give you that higher-level view, but the key takeaways, the key points, the key questions, answers, things that your customers might want from you, or key aspects of AD Campus that you can use either to sell it to your customer and manage on their behalf, or as a full MSP offering. Okay, so we're going to look at 6 main areas when we discuss AD Campus. We're going to talk about the trends and challenges that your customers are facing, or even partners trying to sell managed services or managed solutions. We're going to look at the solution architecture of AD Campus. Again, there are quite a few moving parts, but if you take a high-level view at it and simplify it, we can really break it down into its key components that you don't overwhelm your customers. Then we're going to look at the solution value. Why move to SDN? What's the benefits of moving to SDN? And also, there's a misconception that software-defined networking is this crazy journey, and it's only for the most newest, latest, greatest networks and the best engineers. And just to show you that that's actually not true, we'll look at a very simple, typical network layout, and then if there's time, a few case studies that we can look at as well. Okay, so the first sections are trends and challenges. So why software-defined networking? Why AD Campus? Why move towards it? So if we look at traditional networks back in the old days, things were very, very static. Users sat with PCs, they sat at desks. Yes, you had Wi-Fi and you had printers, but generally the environment was pretty static. Things didn't move around a lot. You could take a switch, configure the switch, you configure ports, you'd have your user ports for your data and your ports for your voice, you'd have printers and maybe a few cameras. The network in essence was very, very static. And now in today's time, and it's been progressively growing, but there's been a massive expansion and a massive growth to mobility. I don't know when last I heard of anybody sitting at a desktop working on a workstation or computer. The whole world has moved into this mobile phase, and everything's about mobility. Endpoints are moving, not just laptops, but thin clients and tablets and cell phones. The network is forever moving and forever changing, and especially with the growth of Wi-Fi 7 and the massive explosion of Wi-Fi 7, this is just becoming truer and more in our face right now. The networks of old have very quickly started to fall away and become redundant, and the need for an ever-growing, ever-expanding networks, the time is now. There's also been the massive explosion of IoT. Our networks are more complicated than ever. There's more moving parts than ever. It's not just possibly some biometric scanners and a couple cameras on the network, but a massive explosion of all kinds of different IoT devices. We're talking about access control and all, but also business management systems, building maintenance systems, OT controllers, sensors, the massive growth of not just how much is on our networks, but the variety of connected devices on our networks has really exploded. And also the move to AI. Everything today is AI driven, and the world has definitely changed. And using AD Campus and software-defined networking is how we can catch up and stay current with the move towards AI. So having AI to help us configure networks, automate networks, but also troubleshoot networks and even auto heal networks. The old days of doing everything on the CLI is gone. Manual configurations and building of networks are gone. And also the old days of manually troubleshooting networks, climbing on a CLI and hopping from device to device, trying to follow a user experience or an issue, those days are long gone. So using AD Campus and AI tools and automation built into it, we can really start building and working on next generation networks. So my clicker doesn't want to move over. I don't know what's, there we go. Okay, so next we'll move on to the solution architecture. So looking at the slide, it looks like a hell of a complicated slide with lots of moving parts. And there is a complication to AD Campus and any software-defined networking environment, but I like to simplify this screen into 4 basic moving parts. At the bottom, we have our endpoint layer and our network layer, our touch points. It's when we actually come onto the network, how we get onto the network, be it a wireless connection, a wired connection, be it traditional networking, PON connectivity. Our first step is getting onto the network. And with H3C's AD Campus, we'll take a deeper dive into how we have a unified, converged management of our entire network. Then we have the unified platform, one platform to service all the needs for your campus, be it your management of your network, your control of your network, and even the analyzing of your network. And built onto that is the SEER analyzer and the SEER engine. The analyzer, as it says, analyzing all aspects of the network, looking at trends, looking at root cause analysis, even wireless one key optimizations, looking at the network both from the user perspective and the network perspective, as well as the SEER engine, the actual brain that controls the network, be that your config deployments, your actual automation, your fixing of the network, or the AI-driven automation and intelligence built into AD Campus. And then at the top, we talk about the openness. As H3C, we don't try to sell just small pieces of an offering. We don't try to sell just switches or just some management. We really try to sell an entire solution to your customer. So as H3C, as a brand, we know we can't do everything. We can't offer everything, especially when it comes to third parties, softwares and aspects like that. And as a brand, we very much believe in partnering with independent service vendors, ISVs, as we call them. So that's when we take a third party, we take our solution and we integrate with them to give your customer an entire end-to-end solution. You can even see it as an end-to-end application, not just small little pieces of the network, but an entire network. Okay, so the solution value. So AD Campus overview. So if we look at 4 main, if we look at 4 main aspects of AD Campus that can really add value to the solution, we look at the simplicity of convergence. So when we talk about converged, we talk about everything on your campus in one single place, one single view, one single pane, one single place to manage your entire network. So be it the wired or wireless, be it PON, GPON, or even H3C's new active optical networking, you can manage an entire campus from one single pane. We also talk about traditional networking, so your VLANs or more modern types of networking like VXLAN, as well as microsegmentation and IP SGT. So really simplifying the management, the automation, the deployment of your network through convergence. Also looking at zero-touch deployment, we'll talk about a little bit later, fault finding and device replacement. Also intelligent IoT, so as mentioned in the previous slide, with the massive growth of IoT, it's no longer possible to configure each and every port, each and every switch, and worry about IoT in its entirety. using intelligent IoT, we can manage the massive explosion of IoT on our networks from one single place. Then comes on to the consistent experience, which we'll talk in details later, but it's about the fact that our networks have expanded, they've grown. We no longer look at a network as just one building or one office block or one area, but we look at an entire campus as one domain and how we can use consistent user experience across all different areas, be it a one physical campus or even multiple campuses, as well as our intelligent O&M. So O&M stands for operations and maintenance. It's an intelligent way to manage your network. So this is where we talk about post-deployment, optimizing the network, automatic problem queuing, tools like Dr. AP to monitor the Wi-Fi, and a few others which we'll dive deeper into each of them in a few slides' time. Cool. So unified orchestration, and this is a massive one from an H3C point of view. So H3C, I probably should have mentioned this a little earlier. So when we talk about AD Campus is our application-driven campus management system, but AD Campus falls part of a bigger play called ADNet. ADNet is a single pane, a single platform where all the different modules plug into. So should you want to do a campus, you'd use AD Campus. Should you want to manage a data center, you'd use ADDC. And if you want to manage WAN, you'd use AD WAN. But where H3C differs to a lot of the other vendors is we do this all under one unified orchestration platform, ADNet. The beauty about this is all the features and all the policies exchange and all the cross fabric is all built in to ADNet from the backbone. So should you want to have a campus that you want to expand via different internet links to different physical campuses, you can bolt AD WAN on top of AD Campus, again, in a unified orchestrated platform. And what's great about it is you install what you need when you need it, and you license what you need when you need it. We'll talk a little bit later, the three different components of ADNet, AD Campus, ADDC, AD WAN, and how the licensing and all works. But the beauty about this cross-domain integration is that it's not all or nothing. It's you take what you need when you need it, and you can walk the journey with your customer. On day one, your customer's just looking at some software-defined campus work. They want to work on their one campus, or they're building a new campus. You can start building out AD Campus just where you need it. And then as the journey grows with your customers or through a phased approach, you can start expanding, adding additional sites onto it, adding additional functionalities like AD WAN into it, but still knowing that you've got one single management plane, orchestration plane, one place to look for your analysis, one unified platform. What's also really nice about AD Campus or ADNet in general is it's fully multi-tenanted. And also another key benefit is the licensing on it is all perpetual. So as a partner, this is a massive one. Should you wish to build your own MSP environment, you can start off with an anchor customer or yourselves. You can build out an ADNet environment, install the modules that you need, license the components as and when you need them, and build it out as an MSP offering to your customers. Little image on the campus and WAN conversion, just a very high level, simple solution showing a single AD Campus controller with AD Campus and AD WAN built on the same controller, and just an example of a basic site. Here, layer 3 switch, you got a WAN router, you got SD-WAN running between the two sites, spine and leaf architecture with a VXLAN, just showing that we can do the converged campus and WAN under one set of management or ADNet controllers. What's also really nice about AD Campus or ADNet in general, but in AD Campus sense of view, is a hierarchical deployment. So if we start talking about customers with multiple branches and multiple sites and possibly sites that are located very far away, we can do a hierarchical deployment where you have one main AD Campus cluster of controllers, but then at each branch, you have another set of controllers. Now, there is centralized management through the main controller where you can configure everything centralized and have your unified O&M from the HQ where you control and manage and monitor and analyze all sites from one central controller. but what it means is you also introduce isolated network fault or isolated domains. So should you have a failure on one of the sites or the HQ or an issue with your link, you don't lose that resilience at all your sites. Unified management control and analytics. So as I've mentioned multiple times, everything about AD Campus and ADNet is all about unified. Everything in a single pane, everything you need to do from one management platform. So AD Campus is split up into three main parts. You've got your management part. Management is your traditional NMS. This is where we're talking about standard alerting, standard reporting, looking at telemetry. It's where we talk about doing config backups and firmware backups and onboarding of devices, your traditional NMS functionality that you'd get from a traditional NMS platform. Just a nice, interesting fact, H3C supports over 6,000 third-party vendors in this NMS functionality. So as long as that third-party product supports technologies like SNMP, SSH, Telnet can send telemetry through Netconf or any of those kinds of technologies, you can also manage third-party products on AD Campus. So that's really relevant when you start talking about customers in a phased rollout where it's not a rip and replace and brownfields deployments, where you can start introducing the H3C products while still monitoring the third-party products in a single pane of glass. The second aspect of AD Campus is the control. That's where we start bringing in the automation part of it. We'll talk about it in more details in the next few slides, but that's where we start doing our intelligent deployment, the auto configuration, the auto expansion, the intelligent device replacement, as well as enforcing policies all around the automation of the network. And then the third part is the analyzer, where the analytics comes in and everything that builds on top of that analyzer. Unified wired, and so just to go into each one of those in a little bit more detail. So the unified wired and wireless. So what's really important about the unified wired and wireless is in the old days, you'd have a wireless controller to deal with the Wi-Fi. You'd have another interface to connect to the traditional switching environment. Sometimes you'd have a complete separate interface to look at your core, something else to look at your access, and even a different platform to look at your data center. Here with AD Campus, it is all unified in one location, and AD Campus doesn't care how the user gets onto the network. If they get in via the Wi-Fi, if they get in via the wireless, it doesn't matter. All the policies are executed from the same switches. Everything is enforced from the same controller, pushing down for unified forwarding of the traffic. In terms of the different campus designs that AD Campus can have, so AD Campus doesn't stick you into one fixed design or one fixed model. AD Campus doesn't say you need to build a network from the ground up, absolutely green, perfect every single time in order to do software-defined networking. In fact, it's the complete opposite. With H3C's AD Campus, you can do software-defined networking on any networking, any type of configuration, and any combination of. It's a single campus with a standard VXLAN design or just a old school VLAN design. If you're talking about multiple campuses spanning over WAN links, ring topology, I know there's lots of old networks in South Africa that still run a ring design. Pretty much any type of network that you have, SDN can be applied on it. One other interesting piece of information is in order to deploy software-defined networking on campuses, the campus doesn't have to be 100% H3C. Depending on the other vendor product and the protocols that it supports, you can also extend certain SDN functionality from AD Campus onto third-party switches. So depending on what they're running, we can definitely still deploy software-defined networking onto your customer's network without ripping and replacing the whole network. Why this is important, many customers, one, don't have the time frame or the budget to rip and replace an entire network, and they do the deployments in phased approaches, or two, there's a specific need for expansion or for modernization of the network, and it's not the entire network that they need to change. So we've here in South Africa had instances of customers only upgrading the core and aggregation layer and leaving the access layer as is, And we've also had the complete opposite, where the customers were doing a drive to Wi-Fi in a Wi-Fi first environment, and their key focus was actually to upgrade the Wi-Fi and the access switches first, and then move over to upgrading their aggregation and core layer next. So as a partner, you can think of this as it's not an all or nothing. You don't have to win that entire tender. You don't have to rip and replace the entire network. We can walk the journey with the customer and slowly transition them over to software-defined networking, depending on their business use and business need. What's really nice about AD Campus is the automated process. The efficiency is increased by 80%. The way you can look at this automation is three main areas. So when you do a new campus, a new construction, you create essentially templates. You configure parameters like VRFs and address pools and the model of the tenant. You define the fabric that it's going to be built on. You import a list of serial numbers of the devices and essentially assign them roles within the network. You turn on those devices. So let's say you're building a new network with a whole bunch of switches. You've got core switches and aggregation switches. You've got your access switches, and you're doing a spine and leaf build. By building out these templates, when these switches come onto the network, they actually auto-configure. They'll go into the template, find their role, auto-configure themselves, and auto-deploy themselves into that network, ready to service traffic. So what this means for you as a partner, number one, it means that your time to deploy is cut massively. In essence, you would need to build one of every type of site, one of every type of switch. You'd create your templates and your set policies and all, design your fabric. And once you plug in all the switches and they've picked up their role, they will automatically configure and deploy themselves. So if you think of the reduced costs, the reduced time to deploy, it's absolutely massive. But not only that, the reduced chance of mistakes and failures. Engineers sitting on the CLR, sitting for hours and hours and hours, copying and pasting and making mistakes. That takes time, it takes money, and it's just asking for trouble. Where here with automated new campus construction, you pretty much reduce the risk to zero. Building on that is campus expansion. Now you need to deploy a new switch, or now the access switch is going into a new building, or they've built up a new campus, and you're actually spinning up an entire new campus with core aggregation and access layer. Using this automated process, again, the same logic applies. Add the devices to the controller, they come onto the network, they assume the roles, and they expand automatically. And this also falls true for device replacements. So should there be a faulty device on the network, gone are the days of an engineer going and needing to recover, backup, or go connect to CLI and try pull config or reconfigure a device by scratch. We simply have a one-click device replacement functionality. Click on the faulty device, click on the new device, push a button, and it's deployed and pushed to the network, and you're back up and running pretty much instantly. Just a few examples of automation deployment with different types. So we have a traditional VLAN network. So on the left, you'll see a traditional layer 3, three-tier network, and you'll see on the right, collapsed aggregation and core layer 2 network rollout. These are just different templates that you can choose and select when building out your network. You'll see another example is doing automated deployment with MLAG, either with VXLAN or VLAN, with a layer 3 core aggregation and access, or a layer 2 just aggregation and access collapsed. And you'll also see there, which we'll talk about in a slide or two, is that AD Campus also supports dual stack, both IPv4 and IPv6. And we can automate deploy with voice VLAN. So depending on what VoIP provider, what phones or handsets are going down, we can also automatically deploy the network depending on who the voice provider is. AD Campus can actually automatically detect those devices using LLDP and automatically configure ports on your switches in order to allow that voice traffic to flow. As I mentioned, IPv6 automation, with the move to IPv6 starting to happen, AD Campus fully supports both single and dual stack. And then when we start to talk about IoT and endpoint incorporation, so As mentioned earlier, the massive expansion of IoT devices. There are so many different devices on our network. It's almost impossible as a customer or for the partner to sit and manually configure each and every switch, each and every port, each and every rule, and each and every function as these devices are coming on the network and moving around the network. So how does AD Campus identify these devices? So there's a few different ways. So one, we can do it via MAC address ranges. So you pre-configure policies with MAC address ranges, and it knows that if a device comes on the network with this range, it will be given a certain role. It can be done via static service IP ranges. So should the third-party IoT vendor statically assign IP addresses onto the devices, we can identify them like that, or with intelligent endpoint recognition via DHCP, as well as using H3C's NAC, which we can do EAD, endpoint detection, where we can actually detect what an endpoint is. It looks like a printer. It says it's a printer, but it's trying to do things that aren't printer functionality. It's clearly not a printer. But it looks like a printer. It says it's a printer. It must be a printer. Let's put it into the printer VLAN and let it do its printing that it needs to do. So how does this look on the actual overlay side of things? So what AD Campus does is it takes all of these devices that have been recognized, and this goes for both IoT devices and traditional devices. It recognizes the device, not only, as I mentioned, via MAC addresses or IPs, it actually can look at what the device is doing, and via different policies, we could see if we actually trust that the device is what it says it is and it's doing what it says it's going to do. We can automatically onboard those devices, and then we can automatically isolate the devices. So an easier way of looking or seeing that is a device comes on the network. When it comes onto the network, it doesn't plug into a voice VLAN on a configured port on a switch or a user VLAN. All VLANs are essentially blank, or excuse me, all ports are essentially blank. The device comes onto the network. How it comes onto the network, we don't care. The device gets identified, it gets recognized, it gets given almost can call it a profile, and based on that, the AD Campus will dictate what that device can do. This is all done automatically in real time, and those overlays are built as and when they're needed. So you don't have these overlays built spamming the network with unnecessary traffic or leaving holes open. Everything is built on demand when needed, when policies are matched. Another very important one, and this is becoming a massive push and a need in the world of software-defined networking and modern campuses, is a consistent user experience. So again, in the old days, you're the IT administrator, you're the network admin, you at your customer, you're in the first building, you connect to the network, and you're able to do what you need to do to, I don't know, access shared file, store a server or something like that. You do what you need to do, you get up, you move to the next building, you connect to the network via the Wi-Fi or via a cable, and now suddenly you're sitting in a different building on a different switch, you've got a different IP address, and suddenly things stop working. You can't access the domain controller, you can't print, or you can't do what you did, what you need to do. In the old days, networks were built statically, and we had to have millions of complicated rules dictating what a person can do, or what a user can do, or what a device can do. And you had to be identified as either just a static device or as a user, but it was very complicated and very difficult to expand that user experience throughout an entire network. With AD Campus and modern networking, we have the ability to give a consistent user experience across an entire network. So what does that mean? It means uniform resources and uniform policy enforcement. So what you'll see is, using a very nice graphical policy matrix, you can classify users into different roles, and those roles aren't based on physical attributes like where they are on the network, where they are in the network, and how they got into the network. We don't care if they connected via physical port on a switch, via the Wi-Fi, if they're in building A or if they're in building B. Once a user gets identified using our NAC solution, they have a profile that they will match, and based on that profile, policies will kick off dictating what they can do. Again, it doesn't matter where you are or how you connect onto the network. All we care about is who you are and we give you that same unified user experience throughout the network. So just graphically showing it here, users in building A, they connect onto the network. Sorry, our next session is users in building A, they connect onto the network, they move to building B. That unified user experience means that everything stays the same. No IP address changing, no privilege changes, no access changing, everything stays the same. Nice little way to see it. Users sitting there, they're in building one, they're on campus one, sitting in builder one. If you look over here, we have SEER engine that's controlling both all buildings on one campus as well as campus number 2. You'll notice over here, the user range, the same range. VXLAN extending that same VLAN across the different campuses. And as the user moves across the network, be it in the same campus across different buildings or even moving to a different campus, AD Campus has the ability to not only keep the user experience and the user rules the same, but we can even keep the IP address the same for that user, so they truly have a uniformed experience across multiple networks. This can also be done with IPSGT and micro segmentation, again, depending on the environment, depending if it's greenfields or brownfields, also depending on what the other vendor product there is, there's multiple different ways that H3C can configure this uniform user experience. Okay, moving on to the intelligent O&M, just an overview of O&M, so operations and maintenance. This is where we're not just looking at our network from a traditional point of view, where we're looking at basic sensors and basic alerts, up-down statuses and stuff like that. It's really deep diving into the network and all aspects of the network. So we look at the network health as a whole. We can look at it from a wireless point of view and a wired point of view. We can look at it from the network itself and how healthy is the network. And we can also look at it from a user point of view and how healthy is the user experience. Not only can we just look at this through the analyzer showing us what it can show us, but we can also use the O&M to help us diagnose issues. So not only does O&M tell us about an issue, it can also help us diagnose the issue and solve the issue. And we'll dive into each one of those different areas in the next few slides. So as I mentioned, the health assessment, looking at both the wired and the wireless network issues and the user's health. What's really nice about the O&M is we can generate a health report. Again, this health report looks at all those aspects that I've just given you. It can be pulled on demand or it can be pushed as a daily, weekly, monthly push. Sitting here as a partner offering a managed service to a customer, I think this is an awesome function built into AD Campus. What it means is that you don't have to wait for people to complain and you don't have to wait for an investigation to kick off. You can set up a report if it's a daily report on certain aspects of the network or monthly report to help you with your SLA agreements and your deliverables to your customer. It takes all aspects of the network, both wired and wireless, user experience and the network itself, and gives you a nice exportable report to send your customers. So looking at network analysis. So what network analysis does is it looks at the network from the network as the network. So it looks at the network as a whole, again, from the wired, wireless, PON, the entire aspect of the network. And it also gives you the ability to do a 360 view of the network from a specific device's perspective. So you can look at the network health with 20 plus KPIs to measure the network as a whole, as well as dive down to individual devices to see how the network's behaving and performing from that single device's point of view. Also have the ability to do user analysis. So the user analysis is seeing the network from a user's point of view. So if they're on the Wi-Fi, how's the experience, how's the connectivity, how's the SNR, the signal quality of where they're connecting to, even how's the experience on applications through our DPI, which I'll show in a slide or two's time. How is the user seeing the network, as well as that same 360 view of the network from the user's point of view. What's also nice is there's the user journey and protocol playback, which is really nice. So what it does is it actually shows you the user's journey connecting onto the network. So a real world example of this, which I actually experienced in real time at a customer, was a customer was having very bad experience on the network. They were moving around and they weren't able to connect and roam very well. and they were just having a very, very poor experience on the network. What we actually found using this tool over here was the network wasn't the issue, the Wi-Fi wasn't the issue, it was actually a DHCP issue, and that the user was having very weird results coming from the DHCP server that was giving it leases, revoking leases, and just misbehaving, and also having a really, really slow response time. So using the user journey and protocol playback, we were actually able to come and see the user's entire journey and experience on the network. As I mentioned, DPR, multiple application identification. There's over 1,000 applications that H3C has built into 80 campuses DPR, and this list is ever growing, as you can imagine, just keeping up with the times. Another very, very cool feature, and I think this is a massive one for our partners, is our change analysis. So what change analysis allows you to do is allows you to compare the running config of a device versus a saved config or a baseline config. Also, it allows you to see who made the change, what change they made, and what the effects of that change. We got the wireless one-click optimization functionality, and this is an absolutely amazing function built into AD Campus. So the problem with Wi-Fi is we know it's an ever-moving environment. Nothing in Wi-Fi is static. Everything's always moving. What wireless one-key optimization does is it actually takes all the information that the wireless controller has gathered and AD Campus has gathered about the wireless environment. It looks at things like just signal in general, interference, the power outputs of the devices, the SNR values of the clients, and it allows you to make optimized in real time. It allows you to optimize the network in real time with the click of a button. So not only are you're no longer just doing static channel assignments or power assignments, but actually looking at the network in real time, seeing what the users are seeing, and optimizing that network with one click. Issue analysis, I mentioned a little bit before, but issue analysis allows us to look at the entire network. Not only does it show us the issues, but it also gives us the ability to dive into the issues. It shows us affected clients, affected devices, and where relevant, can even give us a root cause analysis and give us suggestions on how to fix those issues. So just picture this as a partner sitting on your customer's network, customer phones and says there's a problem on site. Gone are the days where you're logging onto the core and running some, show log commands and trying to find issues, and then you move on to the aggregation and move down to the access. First point of call, log onto AD Campus, click onto the analyzer, click onto issue analysis, and if you haven't already received a report about an issue, from here you can in real time have a view of the entire network, any issues, root cause of the issues, and possible suggestions on how to fix the issues. What's also nice is the intelligent prediction. So built into that issue analyzer is actually the ability to predict issues before they happen. So some examples of that is this transceiver module failure. Using AI and clever metrics, we are actually able to detect that a transceiver is going to fail before it even fails. Link traffic prediction. So when we talk about the ability to move traffic around networks, and this is very relevant if we talk about in the context of SD-WAN, we don't just look at static metrics, but the AD Campus using CA Analyzer is able to take all the information that it's gathered and actually predict utilizations of links. Another cool feature of AD Campus is the progressive optimization. So this is a feature that you turn on. And what this does is, again, using AI and machine learning, it learns your network. It learns the trends. It learns what happens on the network at different times of the day or different days of the week, and it can progressively optimize your network, and not just optimize it statically at the time of the day, but actually optimize it dynamically as the network is changing, but also predict what changes are going to be needed within the network. We got a nice feature built into AD Campus with the wireless controller called Dr. AP. So what Dr. AP essentially allows you to do is it allows you to assign an AP within the environment to act as a user and to act as a client. And with different metrics that you can configure, such as testing THCP or testing access to a website or to a device, it can act as a client and run a number of tests and report to you what's going on in the network. So you don't have to wait for something to fail or for someone to complain, but you can schedule Dr. AP to actually run tests as though it was the client in your network in real time. Problem queue, I'll skip that. I spoke about that just for the interest of time. And then another cool feature is the AP energy analysis. So what this does is it actually is an optimization system that looks at the Wi-Fi, looks at the utilization, and optimizes the power output of your APs in real time based on one, in real time demand, but two, also intelligence that it's learned about the trends of your network. So it knows that you sitting, I don't know, at a university, and at 6 o'clock, all the students go home and the demand on the Wi-Fi goes down. Using the intelligence, AD Campus can actually optimize the power outputs of their APs and essentially shut them down to help you realize a massive saving in electricity. We have seen savings from as little as, or as much as 35%, but all the way up to 80% savings in power usage related to the Wi-Fi. So obviously very, very, very relevant to very, very relevant to South Africa right now with the power crisis and everything that's going on in our country at the moment. Some typical networks and products. So the term product there, I actually should have taken out of the slide. Something I forgot to mention in the beginning, what's very different with H3C and AD Campus and well, ADNet in general compared to a lot of other vendors is we didn't take a solution and then fit products into the solution and mishmash and have some switches that work and some switches that don't, or have very specific hardware that fits into our ADNet or application-driven solutions. We essentially have a solution and all H3C products fall into it. So access switches or your aggregation switches, your core switches, how they fit into the network, there's no specific device that's needed to do an AD Campus rollout. Any device that is capable of being a core of your network or aggregator in your network will fall part of the network. So there's no specific hardware to enable AD Campus. What's more important is that the AD Campus software and how we roll it out. So some typical rollouts over here, 3-layer architecture running VXLAN at the top, static LAN at the bottom, some PoE switches in a in a more modern spine leaf access. And on the right, we're seeing a 2-layer architecture, more basic with some static VLANs. Excuse me, just need a sip of water there. Yeah, so just looking at the typical layout over here, it's just to help you visualize as the partner that it's not all or nothing. There's no one way to do it. AD Campus allows you as the partner or being dictated from the customer to decide how you want to roll it out, what's the best fit architecture, but also it's not a rip and replace. It doesn't have to be greenfields, brownfields deployments is very much possible with H3C, and we can help that our users walk that journey and start that discussion and that drive towards software-defined networking. And yeah, that's it. There's some use cases, but I see I've run a little bit over time, so I don't know if you want to move to any questions, if there were any.
Thanks, Danny. Let's move to any Q&A, any questions. Thanks so much, Danny. That was very informative. My friend who's on the call normally gives us questions. He's quiet today. Sorry, Ivan, you had a question?
No, I wanted to say that I do not have a question.
Okay. No questions.
Okay, so if there are no questions, then what I would like to quickly discuss is, if I could take a few more minutes of everyone's time, is how do we push this over the line and actually get our customers interested in AD Campus and just all of our software-defined networking solutions in general. So obviously with a slide deck like this, conversations like this, but I think the most important thing from an H3C point of view is to try to get our customers to allow us to do POCs for them, especially the bigger customers, multi-campus customers or customers that are busy going on that journey of refreshing the network, to really cut them and get them to really capture what H3C can do with them with the software-defined networking and an AD campus, is to get them to allow us to do a POC for them. So how we like to do a POC is with real kit that we can bring in, that we can put down in the environment, or if they do have a piece of the environment that's possibly not in production, but ideally we would like to do a proper POC to show the customers the value. And again, especially the larger customers where there's a lot of moving parts, what that means is we'll deploy an AD campus solution with physical hardware, and actually go through the whole journey with the customers. We'll show them the onboarding of the equipment, the expansion of the networks, the policies being enforced in real time, the user experience moving across. And we also have a very comprehensive testing document where we can say to the customers, what do you need to see out of this? What are the key success criteria? And we can show them just how beneficial AD Campus is to them. What's very important about this is it's non-committal. There's no cost implications to this. As H3C, this is an offering we give. And it's not something that it's just done via H3C. We very much want to enable our partners to do this POC with us and walk that journey with us. So not only do you go to the customer and show them this lovely presentation and say, hey, look, I can give you this lovely AD campus and make management so much easier, and fault finding and it's perpetually priced but me as the partner, you can go and show them with confidence that you can also support them and offer and give them everything they need within the solution. Cool, and that's me.
Thanks so much, Danny. If there's no questions, I think we'll end it here and adjourn.